It's finally finished, but we're still stuck in supernatural purgatory. This podcast is a rewatch of all 15 seasons and hopefully our way to finally escape this show.
Join us once a week for a fun, informal discussion on each episode and leave comments on the specific upcoming plot points you'd like us to discuss. I was feeling it today.
I hear that. Awesome. So before we get into the episode, I did not realize that last week was actually the mid-season finale.
What? Oh.
Yeah.
That would have messed me up. Right.
So between the last episode and this one, so the last one was in November and then this one was in January.
Wow.
So there was a long gap in between those two. I mean, it was at the end of November. It was November 22nd, and then it came back January 10th.
Okay.
So this makes sense for when we come back to the characters, because I was like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I looked it up and I was like, oh, yeah. So I'm glad that even though we are watching this week by week, we're not actually binge watching this stuff.
Yeah.
It is kind of nice that we didn't have to wait 2 months.
Month and a half. American shows are so frustrating with your mid-season breaks and cutting it up all weird. You don't get this with British TV shows. They just do a season, then it's done, and then you have to wait, I don't know, a million years for the next one.
Well, I guess how many TV shows in England though are 22 episodes long though? Most of them are 10.
To be honest, I'm preferring the shift now towards more shorter seasons, with maybe more plot heavy stuff. But I was having this conversation after Supernatural finished that this is kind of the end of this type of TV show, where you have so many episodes that you get all these weird filler episodes.
That's right.
Yeah, I link it in with Buffy and I don't know, other shows that just had that didn't really know what direction they were going in, so it gets kind of weird at one point. Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. That I feel with the shift to sort of streaming services making TV shows, there is no need to fill out stuff in the way that we're talking, not plot wise, but just content wise.
Yeah.
Because they're not worried about ratings. They're not worried about keeping the audience coming back.
Mm-hmm.
People will find what they want and then they'll just watch it all.
Yeah. So I'm kind of glad we're watching this once a week. It feels authentic, but I'm not waiting 2 months for a gap. No.
No. And I don't. No. I don't think so. So anyway, I thought I'd bring that up because I didn't realize that was the case. So we can get into the episode.
Yes. So this week's episode was the 11th episode of season 1, Scarecrow. Highly rated on IMDb. It had the same rating as Home, so 8.7 out of 10. Which I was surprised about because I thought this was just another Monster of the Week episode, but boy was I wrong.
Right.
This was directed by Kim Manners, so again we've seen him a few times now, and his directing style is, I think, quite recognisable in these episodes. Yeah. There were 2 writer credits on this, so John Shaban and Patrick Sean Smith. So I think we've seen John Shaban a few times. I don't know if we've seen Patrick Smith before, but obviously overarching Kripke's still looking after this season, and I think you can tell in this episode.
Yes, there's definitely certain parts to it. Yeah,
exactly.
So we are in a small town in Indiana, Berksonville. I don't know how you pronounce that.
I got Burkittsville, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And this is a year prior.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple that are in some sort of family home / mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And they're oh, thank you very much, and they're having a nice little conversation, and they're this way to the highway because they've gotten lost, which I think is kind of interesting. you think now, like, you would just follow your GPS and, like, you never get lost. So, like, you're not going to find these, like, weird little small towns anymore. It's kind of sad, but kind of good because of what happens to them. So they're driving along and the car starts to give out in the same way that, like, a ghost attacking the car would be, but we kind of find out it's not really.
Yeah, it reminded me of when they get abducted by aliens in the X-Files. Like, their car would short out and, like, watches would stop and all the electronics would go out. I don't know, it just reminded me of that.
Yeah. Well, so his phone does go out, so it is probably, like, ghosty related a little bit. And so they get out of the car and, like, they're at this kind of spooky looking orchard. I really like how they like did the camera work for this orchard, like the whole, like, every time they're in there, just like using the branches as arches to frame certain things. I loved it. So yeah.
I mean, I have one thing to say about this orchard that bothered me as soon as I was watching it. Those aren't apple trees.
Yes, this is true.
I mean, me and you, we grew up in the West Country, like orchards and, like, scrumping and cider are, like, flowing through our veins. Like, I know an apple tree, and those weren't apple trees.
No, I'm not even sure. Like, I'm not even sure what kind of fruit trees they were, even if they were fruit trees. I don't know.
Yeah, but they're, like, branches are coming, like, straight out of the ground. Like, it's really weird looking trees. I mean, they look spooky. I appreciate that they did the job of looking creepy, but yeah.
I think they were really trying to make sure that you thought they were apple trees by putting, like, baskets of apples underneath the tree, which is, like, you wouldn't, if you're running an orchard, you wouldn't do that.
Just like leave them. Like, I guess they knew they didn't have an apple orchard. Like, they knew,
yeah,
maybe someone's gonna clock this, so they're like, let's make it as appley as possible.
Yeah, that's probably very true. Yeah, because I don't think that. Well, yeah, who knows? They could also be, when we get to the monster, it could also be, like, part of their thing. I don't want to. Yeah. Anyway, so they're walking around and they see this, like, creepy scarecrow tied up to the whatever it's called. I didn't look up what I want to call it a statue. I don't know why. Anyway, and I kind of like the line that the, like, little interaction they have. The boyfriend says, "If I only had a brain," and then the girlfriend says, "We wouldn't be lost." Like, that's the kind of relationship I appreciate.
Yeah, the same wavelength.
Yeah, and so, like, I was watching the guy. At first, I was like, maybe it's like a puppet or a dummy that's up there.
Yeah,
but it's actually an actor, which I think makes it worse, because I swear, this could also be I did watch it late at night, so, like, I maybe wanted it to move, but I feel like you can see it kind of moving ever so slightly, which I don't think you would get with, like, with a dummy.
Yeah,
and it is actually an actor. It's a stunt actor called Mike Carpenter.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he is actually there. Like, he's strung up on this, like, cross thing.
Okay. Well, I guess it makes it, like, the transition to it, like, walking around, like, more believable. It looks the same then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're walking away from this creepy scarecrow towards the house that they've seen in the distance, and the scarecrow, like, moves in their periphery. It's horrible. I find scarecrows. We were talking about this last week, but, like, I find, like, scarecrows are quite creepy. I feel. I don't know what it is about them. Things that are. I don't know. I think it's things that are human shaped but not alive. I think are scary. Like mannequins.
So what about, like? Yeah, I was gonna say, what about mannequins? Like,
they are creepy. Like
they are. Yeah. Like, they're not as bad if they're, like, headless, but when they have a head on them, it's worse.
Yeah, when it's got a face, it's that uncanny valley thing, right? You know. Yeah. Anyway, so it moves, and then the couple gets separated, and you kind of follow the girl for a bit, and she like stumbles across the like faceless body of her boyfriend. It happens quite suddenly. Like they're together, like kind of like trying to get towards the house. Like I think they're running towards the house, and then they kind of get separated, and then she just suddenly stumbles across like his body. And why'd I have to take his face off as well?
Yeah. So there was a like a vertigo camera movement. I don't know if you know what that is.
No.
So in Vertigo, the movie that Hitchcock did, there's a technique where you either push in or pull out, and then you zoom in and zoom out. So if you're pushing in, you zoom in at the same time, and it does like a weird effect. So they did this when like with her like in the, so there was a lot, this whole camera sequence was really like it. I had to keep pausing it and like going back because I was really enjoying it.
That's good.
Like with the steady cam stuff, like it really felt like I was there, like run away. Anyway, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. That's it. So she finds her boyfriend, and then she looks back, and there's the empty Scarecrow stand, and it's just like her screaming.
Horribly.
Yeah. I think that's the title card. So
yep.
Where we get back to Sam and Dean is where we left them last episode, which doesn't happen very often, that you sort of start again where they left off. And
which is where I was like looking at like why it felt so off. It's because it was mid-season and we just had this massive break.
Exactly. So it makes sense that they did this. So we get Sam answering the phone again and kind of doing that same sequence but from a different angle. And then him sitting up in bed and saying like, Dad. But then we see part of John. You don't actually see like his whole face, I don't think, in any of this sequence. It's just very close up on like his mouth and nose talking into the phone.
For a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they finally talk to John, and it's just as frustrating as you think it would be.
Yeah. So the first thing that after Sam says Dad, the first thing he asks is, "Are you hurt?"
Yeah.
I was like, wow. I mean, yes, but like, you are so much better than I am. I would have like, I mean, obviously later on, like they start talking and he slowly gets more frustrated, but like it was kind of very sweet that like the first thing he wants to know is to make sure that he's okay.
Also, though, is he thinking that John would only ring him if he was hurt or in trouble? Like maybe not for any other reason?
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, this whole conversation is quite frustrating because Sam's trying to get information from John and he's just not giving it over. So, I mean, you know, he's saying that, like, John's saying that they have to trust him, that they can't come out and join him where he is. But they know that he's out in California, right?
Yeah,
they knew that already, I think.
I don't think so. Because the reason why he wants to go there is because he saw the caller ID.
Yes,
and
realizes
you're right.
Yeah.
So it's not quite yet that he knows he's in California.
I feel like they mentioned it last episode when he was on the or was it during Home when he was on the phone to some of their like hunter buddies? He was like, "Well, last we knew he was heading to California." So I feel like they already kind of knew he was heading in that direction. I'm sure. Anyway, I may be misremembering. Sam asks him like, "Are you after what killed like Mary?" And yeah, John's like, "Oh yeah, like it's a demon." Ooh.
Yeah, it's like, and then he's like, "It's a demon, but take down these names," and it's just like, what?
Like what? You need to expand on that. You can't just say like, "Oh, it's a demon," and then just leave it at that. But like. He tells him quite a lot here, to be fair. He says, like, well, you know, I know what happened to Jess. Like, I'm really sorry that you got involved in this. And, you know, he kind of mentioned that he's, like, trying to protect them by not getting them involved. But it's kind of a bit like the cat's out of the bag here, you know? Like, Sam already lost his girlfriend. And John, if anyone, should understand Sam's need to investigate this.
Yeah,
surely.
Definitely. Definitely.
I mean, we know that I guess we know that John's keeping him out of this investigation for other reasons. But it seems
but
like
But does John know that yet?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I think so. So yeah, Sam's like, oh, he wants to help, and John gets like more and more like harsh with him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stop looking for me. Like, can't you just listen to orders?
Yeah, I'm giving you an order.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to me. Tell me what's going on.
Look, we don't have time for this. This is bigger than you think. They're everywhere. Even us talking right now, it's not safe.
No. All right? No way.
Give me the phone.
I've given you an order. Now you stop following me and you do your job. You understand me?
Yeah. So,
but he also does confirm that demons are everywhere, because he does say like it's not safe for you to come out this way. So we're starting to see that demons are more than just like how Dean kind of brushed it off.
Yeah.
In Phantom Traveler, we're starting to see that maybe like the demon maybe didn't lie about Jessica.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think John seems like paranoid, right? Saying like they're everywhere, like kind of almost implying like, they're after something. So yeah. I mean, Sam doesn't really get any information out of him. He's like refusing to write down those names without getting the info. So Dean takes the phone eventually.
Yeah, Dean's getting more and more frustrated. I like the way he, like, for a good part of this conversation, his arm is just out, like, not saying anything, just like give me the phone,
like grab your hand,
and then eventually he snatches a phone out of his hand.
I do that. I'm really bad at doing that. When I think I can do something better than the person that's doing it currently, I'll be like hovering, just like, come on, just let me, just let me do it. Like, yeah.
That's too funny. That's funny. So I really liked this when he took over the phone call. Like he subtly went from being concerned son to like obedient soldier. I was just like, I know we talk about Jensen's acting like every single episode, but it's so good.
It's so good.
Dad, it's me. Where are you? Yes, sir. Yeah, I got a pen.
Yeah, I said like, his whole demeanor changed. Like he kind of sat up straighter, like his shoulders went back. Like you could see the whole like just shift in body language. It was it was almost like frightening to watch how much effect like John has on Dean.
Yeah, no, it is actually
but he's just like yes sir, and I guess writes down the names. Yeah.
And as he's like taking these orders, you can see Sam is getting more and more annoyed, like at the fact that Dean's just being a sheep, basically.
Yeah. Chills.
Yeah. It doesn't get any better than that in this episode though. It just keeps it doesn't.
I really enjoyed this episode. I got thoughts that I'll get to. So it cuts to them driving. It's at night time. And it turns out that these names are 3 couples that have gone missing, one every year, like all around the same time of year. I think it said it's the 2nd week of April. So this is when we know this is like set now. An argument starts, and it kind of starts with Dean saying like, well, I'm really impressed with John for like pulling all this information together. Like the man's the master.
Yeah. I picked on that too. And, I think it's because like when you go to university and college, like doing research is not that big of a deal. So I think it's more like Sam's not impressed because he's like, I got into Stanford.
Yeah.
It's not the stuff that he was saying that like he had to go through all these different obituaries to find out this information. Okay, yeah, but like it's really not that impressive.
I guess not, but like it's just showing how much like Dean looks up to John. He's almost like talking him up to Sam as well, and like, come on, be impressed like I am. Yeah. So Sam stops the car, like, just like, nope, not doing it. Sam's like, no, we're not doing this. Like, we're not doing this case. Like, I'm not having it. Not doing it. I want to go to California because, as you said, he found out that the payphone number came from Sacramento. Would you think John would be more like wised up on how to cover his tracks?
Yeah, I mean, was he thinking about it though?
That's true.
Or because like you can use a payphone in one area and like in Sacramento and like easily drive 3 or 4 hours and end up in Nevada.
Yeah.
So it's not too big of a deal, I don't think. It's definitely he used a payphone, so like it's not using his cell phone, which they would have been able to really tell more information.
Maybe. I don't know at this point whether they're that sophisticated that they could like track a cell phone, especially it's like those like Motorola flip phones. Like I realized this episode that I had like Dean's like Motorola phone. Like I had that phone when I was about, I don't know, 15, 16. Yeah, anyway.
Which would make sense for when this came out. So
yeah. Sorry, off topic.
That's funny. Yeah, you're good. So yeah, this is another like we're starting off heavy in the very beginning of this episode. It's like a very, very another heavy conversation. Basically, they go back and forth between needing to go to California and Sam really wanting to go there to help John.
Yeah,
and Dean's like, well, Dad doesn't need our help.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, I don't care.
Dad doesn't want our help.
Well, I don't care.
He's given us an order.
I don't care. We don't always have to do what he says.
Yeah, I was like, I think Sam said like, I don't care about 3 times. Like, everything that Dean said is like, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. I was just like, okay, whoa. Yeah.
And like, so I literally wrote this whole conversation out because
I did as well. It was,
it was intense. And now I'm realizing I should probably just like look up a script for this episode. It might be a little bit easier, but it's okay.
It's fine.
He doesn't care, and like, Dad is asking us to work jobs to save lives. It's important. Everything he said in that is true. Yeah. But I think he didn't ask. He didn't. That's the thing. Dean. I think Dean sees these orders as asking.
Yeah.
But he also knows, because he does say Dad ordered us at one point too.
I mean, the bit that got me was like when Sam's like wanting to go to California and Dean's like, well, no, but like, I know how you feel. Yeah. And then Sam really goes off at him like, no, you don't know how I feel.
All right, look, I know how you feel.
Do you? How old were you when Mom died? 4? Jess died 6 months ago. How the hell would you know how I feel?
Like, wow. Calm down. Like, that's a touchy thing for him. Even in that first episode, like, he almost knocks him off a bridge for like insulting that.
I mean, I guess Sam's got kind of a point. It is fresher in his mind that Jess died. So he's obviously hurting, more, I think. And really, Dean's like not really, I don't think he's like mourning his mum, but like the idea of her. He was so young, but that was out of line. But I mean, they both say things that are really out of line in this episode, I think.
And then Dean explains that like, if Dad knows it's not safe, then he obviously knows something we don't, which obviously, as a viewer, as a hindsight viewer, we know that he does know.
I mean, he obviously knows something that we don't. So if he says to stay away, we stay away.
I don't understand the blind faith you have in the man.
Look, they dropped this in later seasons, but like talking about like faith in John Winchester and then like faith in God as well. The parallels are deep and like run throughout these first few seasons, and I do feel like in later seasons that they dropped this parallel, which is such a shame because it's such a good narrative on like believing in, not having to take everything your parents say as like absolute word.
Gospel, yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, blind faith. Whew. Okay.
Yeah. And then his response is, it's being called a good son, and I was just like, oh no.
Yeah, again, like out of line. Yeah. And also it doesn't make they have such a messed up relationship. I think Sam thinks that Dean is the favourite, right? And Dean blatantly thinks that Sam is the favourite. Like And so Dean's trying to do everything he can to kind of live up to those expectations that John's putting on him. And it's ridiculous the amount of pressure that John seems to put on them, even when he's not there. From literally a phone call, how much like damage
turmoil
it does.
yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess the argument escalates that they can no longer be sat down for it. So.
We've all had those arguments.
Yeah. And they exit the car, and like Sam is collecting his bags, which like I guess this is the first time we've ever really seen them like with their regular things.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, like usually like when they have like a duffel bag or whatever, it's because it's got their like hunting tools in it.
Yeah.
But he just like pulls out like a backpack and a messenger bag and like I guess another duffel bag.
Yeah.
Dean continues the argument saying you're a selfish bastard.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is reading into it, I think, a little bit, but like,
do it.
Is he calling him a selfish bastard because he doesn't want to go hunting, or because he got to do whatever he wants? I mean, he does say that a little bit. But.
I think it's both. I think, Dean's very much like, oh, Dad's sending us on this to go save people. That's our job. That's what we should do. If you're not following those orders, maybe people will die. You're being selfish. But I also do think you leaving me here by myself is selfish and just doing what you want. So I think there's a few little things in that.
Subtext. And then Sam responds, well, this selfish bastard is going to California.
I love that.
Yeah.
So petty.
So this is a very, very like, this is definitely a turning point. And I'm kind of glad that this happened, like, imagining this as it was aired.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine coming back to this? I would be shocked.
Yeah,
I mean, I was shocked anyway. But at the same time, maybe not so much, because we did just see that Sam will kill Dean. Like, he didn't try to shoot him in the last one.
The argument was coming. They've been building up to this argument. I mean, even like the end of this scene is so childish as well. It's just like, well, I'll leave you here, and there's like Sam like, I want you to leave me here.
Come on, you're not serious.
I am serious.
It's the middle of the night. Hey, I'm taking off. I will leave your ass. You hear me?
That's what I want you to do.
Like, I've had those arguments like with my parents as a teenager, not as someone maybe in my 20s, but I guess it's different with siblings. But yeah, it's definitely been building to this confrontation, and they needed to get it out into the open, all this stuff that they've not been saying to each other.
Yeah. And so Dean drives off into the night, and
just
Sam's walking away.
I mean, he just leaves him on the roadside, like, fine, okay.
At the same time, though, like, Sam's 22, like, it's not like he's a child, so...
I guess so, but they also know that, like, monsters are real, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
He could have at least driven him in stony silence to a bus station. I would have liked to have seen, like, 30 seconds of that awkward car ride.
Yeah, that would have been funny.
So, I mean, yeah, very important scene. I think, again, this carries through the episode. The next few sequences, like, switch back and forth between them. And this is kind of the first episode where they've been separated. So I think it was really interesting to see how they cope on their own and how they interact with people on their own. So Dean arrives in Burkittsville, Indiana. And I then doesn't call Sam. Like, he gets his phone out and he's like, gonna call him? No. Too angry still. And he talks to a guy called Scotty, who owns Scotty's Cafe. And he introduced himself as John Bannum, and like immediately gets like called out on it. Like, the guy's like, oh, isn't that the drummer from Led Zeppelin? He's like, oh yeah, classic rock fan. Nice. Yeah.
Like, so it's not unusual to have similar names as famous people. He could have like played it off a little bit better.
Then the guy does call him John, and I wondered if Dean immediately regretted picking that name.
Oh, maybe
after the argument they just had about their dad.
True.
So he gives Scotty like the missing persons posters that he's got on these couples, and the guy's being really cagey, essentially, and just a bit off, I think.
Yeah.
Dean's making jokes and things, but yeah, it's obvious this guy is something's going on.
Scotty, you got a smile that lights up a room. Anybody ever tell you that?
So then we cut to Sam, and he's walking down the side of the road. I guess he's been walking for most of the night, and we don't know how late it was when he was dropped off. And he meets a blonde girl at the side of the road listening to music. In classic Sam style, he's like wanting to help her out. But yeah, what? I forgot this was this episode.
Me too. Definitely me too. And this is where knowledge is a curse for sure, because I could not see past who she was. Yeah. The thing though, it was a bizarre introduction to a character because he is looking around. So surely you would have seen her like in the distance.
Yeah.
But the way that it's shot is like she just pops up. Like, he gets startled by her being on the side of the road. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, I mean, maybe he has been walking all night and he's a little tired, so he's not being that observant. But like, she's not. I mean, yeah, she sat down, but she's not in like camouflage or anything. Like you would have seen like a lump on the side of the road. They have like a little conversation, and like this really is like, it's so hard to watch.
I know.
Because she says you could be some kind of freak.
You could be some kind of freak.
And I was just like, oh. Like, obviously they've had this conversation of like Sam's called himself a freak a few times, and you know the way that the emphasis is on that is like, it's clearly intentional. That couldn't have been like that was a director's choice.
Yeah, definitely. Using that word, because he does refer to himself as that like quite a lot. I think there's some like, okay, so let's just say like, so we know this is Meg.
Yes.
I know she doesn't introduce herself as Meg till later on, but we know this is Meg, the first iteration of Meg. So there's like some light flirting going on with Sam. It just felt a bit weird to me. I was like, okay, because obviously we know, like, yeah, it doesn't last very long, this interaction. Like a van pulls up and she gets in because the guy's like, no, I'm not taking you, like, weird guy. I'm only taking the girl. And I was surprised that Sam didn't try to stop her. He's very much like, you know, hero mode often. Yeah. So I'm surprised he didn't try to stop her getting in this van with this like shady guy. But
well, he does say like, because he asks her where she's going and she doesn't give an answer, which I mean, she's waiting for Sam to tell her where to go, basically. So it's kind of interesting how, and then he says, you trust shady van guy over me. So it's just like that was basically the extent of like, are you okay to do this? Because she responds like, yeah, well, like, I can't remember exactly what her response is, but
we cut back to Dean, and he's like showing posters around this town, and we see the couple from the beginning of the episode, and they say to him that they don't recognize the couple, which obviously we know is a bit weird. Young woman who's with them, whose name is Emily, you know, says like, oh, he had tattoos? Like he had a really recognizable tattoo. And then she sort of goes to these like people, you know, those people that we helped. So they kind of have to play into that and tell Dean where they went. So he goes out to the same route that they sent them, and he's driving along, and in his duffel bag his EMF reader's going like crazy. So, which is, I thought that was quite interesting that it's going like off so much, considering the nature of this like monster of the week. But it's the first it's the only clue he gets that there's something weird in the orchard, so it needed to be there. So he pulls over and has a little scout around this creepy orchard.
I have to say, like, day fog is the worst. Like, it's day and ground fog. Like, so I used to live in San Francisco and there was fog all the time, and that was fine. Yeah. But like this kind of where it's sort of just laying on the ground, and like, but I hate it. I see it a lot in North Carolina now, and I'm just like, can you not? It's not what I'm here for.
we had a series of about like 5 days, because I live somewhere that's very flat, very wet, where the fog was so thick, I don't think I saw the sky for like 5 days.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was crazy. I think it looks fairly cool, but it's difficult to drive in. But it happens a lot around here as well. Yeah, it's not my fave.
But for him walking through the orchard, it was very, very cool.
It looks really wicked. Yeah, I appreciate it a lot. So, I mean, he finds the creepy Scarecrow.
Dude, you fugly.
Which I love how Dean just says these things to himself. Like, there's no one around. Like, who are you talking to? I don't know. Do you often talk to yourself? I don't think I do.
I do. Yeah. It's usually like when I'm trying to do things, or if I know there's like a lot of things I need to do, I'll be like, okay, I've done that. I got to do this next. Or like it's mainly like humming and like clicking that I do.
Yeah, I do that a lot actually, to be fair.
I don't think I do it a lot while I drive too, actually. Like I have a little bit of road rage. So I will cuss out some other drivers sometimes.
You say that actually, yes, I do that more when I'm driving, like, oh, I just gotta go this way. Do. Yeah.
So but I don't think I've ever done anything like, I mean, I don't, no, I don't think I've ever done, not like this, no.
So we see the Scarecrow has like a small scythe. I guess it's kind of a scythe. I'm sure it has, maybe it's called an awl, like AWL. I don't know. It has a name, but it has like a weapon. So Dean goes and gets a ladder and like climbs up so he can kind of like stare at it in the face, I guess.
Well, so okay, did he notice the scythe or did he notice the tattoo?
Yeah, so he like climbs up and he like I think he's trying to like get the scythe or like look at it, but while he's doing that, he kind of looks at the arm as well, and that's where we see that this Scarecrow has the same tattoo as the missing guy, but it's all kind of like desiccated and creepy. Yeah.
I really didn't like how close he got to that like Scarecrow's face. That I was just waiting for it to just like turn or like bite or something, which is also where like I felt like you like having an actual person there made it worse.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was going to move. I did think it was going to move, and then it kind of like cut, and I was like, oh, it didn't move at any point. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, he finds out that you know, this is the guy. So he goes back to town to see this girl Emily, and he finds out her name because she's wearing a necklace with her name on.
Yeah,
it's classic. And it turns out that she wasn't born in the town. She moved there when she was 13 because her parents had died in a car accident, and the people that she was living with her were her aunt and uncle. So a little bit of backstory for Emily there, because she becomes quite an important character.
Yeah.
And she's sort of talking about how the town's nice, like all the other towns around them have kind of gone under, but this town, I think she says like, oh, I feel like we're blessed.
Yeah. And it's clear that Dean does not believe that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like good things come at a price. If everything else is going horribly wrong, there's something like in the surrounding area.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something is up.
It's an unusual pattern. So and there's a truck in the garage, so he asks who that belongs to, and she's like, oh yeah, there's a couple in town that we're fixing their truck up for them. So he's like, oh, maybe they're, you know, Dean's like, oh yes, got my eye on that one.
Yep. So we then cut back to Sam at the bus station, and he's talking to an attendant there who's saying that the next bus to California is not until the next evening. And so he's like, well, is there not anything else? And she's like, well, the only way you can get there is if you rent a car. Which, I mean, that makes sense. Like, but I guess he doesn't really have any money to do that, so...
Yeah, he left in a bit of a hurry. Maybe he didn't take everything that he necessarily needed. Or maybe they, you know, he decides not to, essentially.
Yeah, basically that's what comes down. I mean, it's going to be cheaper to get a bus than it is to rent a car for like a couple days.
Exactly.
And he then checks his phone And so the contacts on here make a little bit more sense than what Dean had. So there was Rebecca from Skin, and then Jerry from Phantom Traveler. I don't know who John was though. John Mercytuck? Does that ring a bell?
No.
And then it was Dean. But I don't know who programmed this phone or like why this phone doesn't put them in like alphabetical order. Because that's the way that I told you is the way that they showed up.
Yeah. Are they in...
So it was a W, a J, or an M, then Dean, and then a Mary Ann Lou.
So they're not even in like reverse alphabetical order.
No, it's just like
how confusing.
Weird. Anyway.
Yeah.
And he turns around and lo and behold, Meg is sat on the floor again.
Suspicious.
Suspicious. So again, this is where I was like, we know that I don't know how much to say. So we know who Meg is. We do know who Meg is. And we also know that demons can teleport, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't know if, well, do we know that yet? I don't think so, because I don't think I don't know if she did or not. It would still make sense that she got there before him if she took the van. And I guess the next logical place that Sam would be going was a bus station.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they've established yet in the lore that they can go like flick from place to place. Yeah.
Something to ponder on.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Sorry.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
So Sam tells her then that he's trying to get to California, and like lo and behold, Meg's like, "Oh yeah, me too." Yeah. And I said they're still kind of like smiley at each other and stuff. Like I think this is showing how Sam makes friends quite readily. Like he's a personable person. You know, he's obviously
like a genuine personable person.
Yeah, he is very,
because we see what Dean is like in the next scene.
Yeah, without him. So I think, you know, he's trying to maybe like make a friend on this sort of journey to California, because my geography is bad, but I imagine that it's far from Indiana to California. So maybe if they can travel together, that just might make it more pleasant. And she seems on his wavelength, I guess. You know, like I said, they're about the same age. She was like listening to music and stuff, seems to have a similar sense of humor to him. So, okay. Yeah, I can believe it.
And this is where she actually introduces herself as Meg.
Yes, exactly.
I'm Meg.
Sam.
Then we cut to Dean, and he's entering the diner, and Scotty is like being really cordial and polite to the couple that are in there, and like offering them pie and all this other food and stuff. And then as soon as he sees Dean, his demeanor is just like, it just drops. He's again very standoffish, like that Scotty is very standoffish, and just leave the couple in peace.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very it's trying to be charming, but like, so this is where the genuine like friendship that Sam was trying to go for is not there with Dean, which is kind of interesting, because like, how did he hunt by himself before?
I don't know if he did it as well, you know, because I mean, you know, so he comes in, he orders like a black coffee and some apple pie, which let's say he never gets to eat, because I was like, oh, this is gonna be the first time I get to see Dean eat some pie, and then he never even did. So
he doesn't even get his coffee.
Yeah, he doesn't get anything. So he's asking this couple, you know, like, oh, what's up with your car or your truck, like, and then he's kind of like, maybe I can fix it, I know a thing or two about cars. And I think the girl has a genuine, like, it's fine, we'll get the mechanic to do it. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
It's like some random guy. But then he kind of comes off as almost like a little bit threatening, because he's like, well, they're, you know, it's not safe out there. Like, trust me on this. And they obviously look like the couple kind of like, leave us alone. Because Dean's trying to be nice and he's trying to be friendly. Like, his face is quite open and honest. But I don't know what it is about his like body language that is being kind of weirdly like creepy.
Yeah.
I
think it's because he's like leaning forward and like kind of looking. He's it's very, very weird. It's like
I think he looks nervous. I think that's what it is. Yeah. I guess because he's gotten used, because they've said they've been doing this now for 6 months together, him and Sam. That gets mentioned at the beginning of the episode. And so maybe he's gotten used to it now, having Sam around to pick up the social pressure.
Yeah. I mean, so at the beginning of this episode, I did note that when he approached Scotty for the first time, he did appear uncomfortable and like not really sure what to do. And I kind of was just like, maybe it's just, you know, the standoffishness was like throwing him off a little bit. But so this kind of comes back to like Dean always lies.
Yeah.
Right? And Sam generally tries to tell the truth.
Yeah.
So I think it's Dean doesn't have that person to like say, no, now we have to tell the truth. Because Dean's getting so confused with this conversation, like, how much can I tell them? So he starts off by sort of lying to them a little bit, being by like omission, and then like tries to tell them the truth about it being dangerous, but not quite really.
Yeah.
So
he definitely needed Sam there to be to say something. It's almost like he was pausing at moments to wait for Sam to talk, you know? Yeah.
And he does say, like, if my brother was here, he'd give you these puppy dog eyes.
Well, you know, my brother could give you this puppy dog look and you just buy right into it.
The sheriff turns up and escorts Dean out. And it's odd. Like, literally, we see him take him out of the cafe. I mean, Dean goes willingly. And then the police car is literally, like, running him out of town.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like, gets him across the border and turns around and goes back. So they obviously don't want him there. We know something shady's up with the town. And that makes it pretty clear.
That's very, confirms it. Then we go back to Sam at the bus station, and he's having a drink and some food with Meg. And so how much of this conversation do you think is like mind reading versus what the demons know about the Winchesters?
Yeah,
because she pushes all of his buttons. Basically, she says that she's trying to get away from this family who has expectations for her, and you know, it's basically mirroring what Sam is going through.
Because my family said so, I'm supposed to sit there and do what I was told. So I just went on my own way instead.
I think it's concerning, right? Especially like how much she seems to know. So I think it makes us think, like, how do they know this information? Like, are they watching them? John did say that they were everywhere. I know obviously we don't know about Meg at this point at all. So it might just seem like, oh, he's met kind of a kindred spirit at this bus station. But I think, like, thinking about it later on, they're probably being like surveilled by the demons. But also, I mean, Sam's also by himself at a bus station, seems to be like running away from something. I don't know how intuitive you have to be like, oh, maybe this is family problems. You know?
Yeah,
so maybe it's true. Kind of like cold reading him a little bit as well.
So, and it does sound, well, you said we never really hear his side of the conversation, because she does bring up knowing about Dean a little bit later.
Yeah.
So maybe he's already sort of, obviously they're like halfway through their meal. So maybe he has already told her a little bit. Maybe he's already told her a little bit about his situation.
Yeah, he does say to her, like, oh, he knows how she feels, because, and then he does talk a little bit about Dean. He basically just says it's like, oh, the same deal's going on. Like, you know, Meg even says, like, oh, look, at least we're living our own lives and nobody else's. And I think they must be being watched, because a lot of it even sort of mirrors conversations that, like, Sam and Dean are having. But
but so that's where I'm like, is that more mind reading? The conversations that they had. So I'm trying to think back to how, like, the bigger blow ups that they've had. The only one that really stands out is the one that they had at the university. Yeah. The other ones have been like in the car in the middle of nowhere. They would have seen something. I know that we know that demons can like be smoke, and they don't necessarily have to be in a body. So maybe they are lingering, I guess. But this is all coming because we know who she is.
Yeah,
and we
exactly.
know how demons work. So that it is very difficult to actually watch this interaction, just because like we know too much.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to read into a lot.
Yeah, as I said, I read it like, she found him hitchhiking at the side of the road, and then now he's at a bus station, so he's obviously going away from something. So it's not necessarily a huge leap, but I think it does make you think about it more as well. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it cuts back to like it's nighttime now, and Dean's driving back through. I like it because the last one was just like him driving out, and then it's like the exact same shot of him driving back into the town. So he obviously doesn't like give a damn. And we see the couple in the orchard. So we see Dean driving back, and then the couple are kind of in the orchard, kind of almost like mid-scene, right? They're like, the Scarecrow's coming after them, and they're like running away from it. But luckily, Dean appears with a shotgun, and like,
which in like in a really scary way. Like it's like he kind of just appears, and like you've just told this couple that there's things out there, and then like you're there with a shotgun basically pointed at them. I know the monster is like after, like running behind them, but it's just like I would just be like, nope, and like run in the opposite direction, like I don't know, like go sideways into him.
If you've seen the Scarecrow and then this guy appears like shooting at it, I don't know, I'd maybe follow him, but my self-preservation is not that great. So he's like running and shooting at it, and it's like not working. It's not very effective. And then I said, there's quite a good zoom where he's like standing in front of a car with the couple behind him, and it like zooms on into Dean with the shotgun held up.
Oh, it did? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it was very. It wasn't in the like complete caliber of like dramatic zoom, but it was good enough that I wrote it down. So
I don't think Kim Manners really likes his dramatic zooms. I don't think he's really done any.
Yeah, he doesn't do it as much, though. Definitely not. We haven't seen many from him. So I guess once they're out of the orchard, they're safe, because the guy asks like, "What was that?" and he's like, "Don't ask." So they get away. I guess, like I said, like leaving the area must be enough to get the Scarecrow off them. Yeah. So we cut back again to Meg and Sam at the bus station, and Sam's on the phone to Dean talking about the case. Now I put here really interesting, like who do you think phoned who? Because we don't know. Do you think Dean phoned Sam to tell him about the case, or do you think Sam phoned Dean to like check in on him?
I think Dean called Sam. Because of what happens later on.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So like they're talking about it, and Dean's like, "Well, I can cope without you," and you're like, "Okay, sure." But they're talking about it like, and Dean's obviously done some research in between him saving this couple and then I guess ringing Sam, because he says that he thinks it's a pagan god, because there's an annual cycle to what's going on. It always seems to be a man and a woman, so he thinks it's related to some fertility rites. And he said like the town is weird, basically. Like summed it up, like the town is kind of weird. So he thinks it's some kind of like ritual sacrifice, and Dean needs to figure out what god it is, and he has an appointment with a professor at a college to do some research.
I thought it was funny that he said, I don't have my geeky sidekick here.
Yeah.
And like Sam's smile and response is so sweet. It's just like,
This is where they start to like repair their relationship a little bit after the big fight. I guess, if one of them reached out, and we were speculating those Dean, but one of them did, to kind of talk about the case, and that's their like common ground. So it makes sense that they're kind of talking about this nicely.
Yeah. And like Dean's sort of trying to apologize, and then like obviously Sam can tell it's not really like he's not super comfortable, so Sam basically takes over and says, "I'm sorry to you."
Yeah. It was, I say like, he's trying to say sorry, but, and Dean says that like he's all, like Sam was right to leave, like he's right to go and try and live his own life, and also to stand up to John.
Yeah, I mean, he even says he looks up to the fact that Sam stands up to John.
Yeah.
And you've always known what you want, and you go after it. You stand up to Dad, and you always have. Hell, I wish I... Anyway, I admire that about you. I'm proud of you, Sammy.
Oh, it's a nice conversation, this. I
It
loved
is.
it.
And like he does give him his blessing, like you said, like to go live his life and to do what he needs to do, and then they end the conversation with "Call me when you find Dad." I was just like,
yeah, like,
he has
when
faith
he says,
in him.
like, "Oh, I'm proud of you, Sammy." I'm like, oh, clutches at the heartstrings. But like, the thing is, I feel sorry for Dean in this, because he's like, he wishes that he could do the same as Sam and like go off and live his life. And I just put like, why not? Why not? Like, what's stopping you? You actually don't have as many ties to this as Sam does. Like, I know, like, obviously he lost Mary, but like Sam lost Jess. Like, he's way more invested in this than Dean is. Like, Dean could go and just do what he wants, but I guess he's too...
He's like, you know how in the army they basically break you to then build you back up?
Yeah.
That's basically what's happened for his whole life. So he doesn't know any other way of life at this point in time.
Yeah.
Like, I think the idea of not being a hunter, and like, because he every time Sam doesn't want to go hunting, he tells him this is to save lives.
Yeah.
So he knows that if he doesn't do this, he'll feel responsible if somebody dies in some sort of supernatural way. I mean, because he's not going to stop checking like newspapers and articles and stuff like that. They do this every day. Like they're always looking for cases.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of like, how easy is that to really give up if you don't have that resistance in you in the first place, like Sam does.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. Oh, it's so, I mean, yeah, early Dean, I guess. And like Sam as well, their characters are so, they're just so good. Like, I don't know. Whatever. So with this phone call, it like pans to Meg, and it kind of like implies that she was listening. Like, you're like, oh, like, who was that on the phone? Yeah, Sam says like, oh, that was my brother, like, saying goodbye. Like, oh, he really does think that this is it. Like, they're going their separate ways now, for a fair amount of time, because who knows when John will order Dean to come help him, and he won't come until then. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Then we're at the local college with Dean, and basically we get an explanation of exactly what the monster is, and it's a Norse god, which I'm gonna let you pronounce.
Oh, the Vanir.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like they said it wrong in this episode, but I don't know. I was listening to it a little bit. It didn't sound like it was pronounced quite right.
And basically everything gets confirmed to what Dean had suspected, that like, so I mean it takes a little bit of time to like narrow it down, because the professor's kind of being a little bit vague as well, but kind of helpful too. And he basically comes to the conclusion that like they need to burn a tree to kill the god, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, they said like the people who settled there were from Scandinavia, and I guess they brought their gods over with them, including this like tree that they planted with the orchard. So if they're doing this ritual sacrifice to keep their crops growing, and then they need to burn the tree in order to, I don't know, dispel the god a bit. Yeah, it's like we don't see many like pagan gods and things in Supernatural very often.
No.
So I guess it's an interesting change from sort of other kind of folklore bits and bobs. But yeah, I thought it was fairly interesting for that take on it. As like, I wonder how much like this one is. I know we haven't come across this yet, but like a tulpa, where I think people believe in things and then it kind of becomes real. I wonder how much this god is kind of like that the people who live there have created this idea of what it does. And then it kind of bends to how they're thinking about it. I like that kind of stuff. I think it's really interesting. I like that kind of idea.
That is I didn't think of it that way. So Dean like takes this information, he's got to burn this tree, and he turns around and leaves and gets a shotgun to the face.
Yeah. Which made me think, like was the professor in on it then? Is everyone in on it? But he was being so chill with him. Like that professor is a good actor.
He was. He definitely was. Because you can just tell by like if you look after Dean gets knocked out, there's a look between the two of them.
Yeah.
So it's either the professor's in on it, or he has to tell the sheriff if someone is looking into it.
Yeah, just complicit in it. I guess everyone is in this town though, aren't they? So yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, Dean goes down quite hard. It was like,
yeah. I mean, luckily I've never taken a gun to the face, but I can't imagine that it feels good.
No. Yeah, through the rest of this episode he has a big kind of bruise above his eye. So yeah.
Good job, my makeup artists.
Yeah, exactly. So the townspeople have a little gathering. We see them, they're all stood in the rain with their umbrellas, and they're kind of talking about what their role is in this, and that they feel guilty about doing this sacrifice. But basically Dean messed it up when he saved that couple, and they've gone now. So this is the last day that they have a chance to do it. And they say, well, if the boy needs to die, that's fine, but why her? So they're obviously lining up some different sacrifices, and this whole scene has a real feel. Like I said, to Annabelle, before the podcast, it's this episode kind of reminded me of the Wicker Man movie, this 1970s version. And I think you said to me it felt like Hot Fuzz, and actually this scene with the umbrellas, I do see that more now than the Wicker Man.
It's the neighborhood watch alliance, their flashlight, their torches under their faces. I mean, it's not obviously as comical, but because they basically say it's for the greater good.
Yeah,
they don't put it like that, but they say something like that. So a little bit later on, the aunt says, "It's for the common good."
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, so it is. Yeah, it was very a Hot Fuzz moment. And I think them all stood around that circle. Yeah, I was oh yeah, that is actually, you're right. It is more like Hot Fuzz.
Especially in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. How many of these creepy villages are there in the world?
Too many.
So Dean's in a cellar, and then it kind of opens up, and they bring in Emily. So I guess she's going to be the other sacrifice. She's like, "Why are you doing this?" Because it's her aunt and her uncle, the betrayal.
Yeah. And then that's why she said it's for the common good. It's just that's crazy. You would kill your family for the no.
Yeah, no. Exactly. They're obviously in trouble. But we see Meg getting ready to leave from the bus station, and Sam's on his phone looking worried. He can't get hold of Dean. So Meg asks him are you coming? And he's like, no, I've got to go. Dean's in trouble. He's not answering his phone. And she does try to stop him. She wants him to go to California with her. But I think Sam responds to that with well, he's my family.
Yeah. So this is the reason why I think it was Dean that called in the first place.
Yeah.
Just because of I feel when one person makes the attempt to call first time, it makes it easier to then respond to that phone call.
Yeah. You've got to give that olive branch.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's kind of interesting that why would Sam be trying to call Dean at this point?
I mean, he knows that the case is going on, so I imagine that he's checking up on him, because if he knows he's running this active case, he knows what it is now. Like, he knows it's a pagan god, and maybe they haven't faced that kind of thing before. Like, he's probably a little bit worried, just making sure that he's managed to find a way to kill it, and then is actually like done it or gonna do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Then we're back to Dean and Emily, and he explains his plan and trying to find out, like, is there a tree that's a particular value to the town? Like, is it something? And she says, yes, there's this tree in this area. Well, not in this area, but it's called something. What do they call it?
I don't. Oh, the first tree.
The first tree.
Yeah.
And it's, it's held in high regard, but she doesn't know where it is.
Yeah. So it's somewhere in the orchard, but I imagine it's huge.
Yeah.
But I mean, so Scotty comes and gets them with a shotgun, and then we see Dean and Emily tied to separate trees, like with their hands kind of above their heads. And Dean's kind of trying to bait them, like to the sheriff. He's like, how many people have you killed? Like, even if you're not killing them yourself, it's your responsibility.
It's almost the complete reverse of how he feels about saving people.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, that's true. So I think it's really interesting here what the auntie says to Emily. She's like, well, this is our responsibility. We don't have a choice. And Emily says here, like, well, I'm your family, kind of mirroring what Sam was saying earlier. And the aunt here says, like, well, sacrifice means giving up something you love for the greater good. And she says here, which is blatantly a line from, like, this is a Star Trek reference.
The good of the many outweighs the good of the one.
But I thought this was really interesting. So that she's talking about sacrifice and family, right? Which is, like, the Winchesters' whole deal. So this is showing, I think, how that responsibility can get, like, twisted up. She's sacrificing her family for this responsibility, which is in the same kind of way. Like, I guess John's trying not to do at this point. He's trying not to sacrifice his family for the greater good, even though they kind of want to. Like, Dean definitely wants to go help him. Sam definitely wants to go help him. Yeah, and I think this is really interesting, this twisted up likeness of it, because later on we see them sacrificing themselves for each other so much, in terms of responsibility, and I guess Dean's not happy because seeing it, like, reflected in this way, it's just, like, unbelievable. Like, you would never sacrifice your family. For the greater good.
Right, and they never sacrifice their family, they sacrifice themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's a little bit different, I guess.
Yeah.
So with this heavy conversation going on, or, like, between them, I do love the fact that Dean's like, I hope your apple pie is worth it.
Hope your apple pie is freaking worth it!
The apple pie is always worth it. To sacrifice a few people for them good apples.
Right.
Yeah. I love that parting shot. That's really great. It's so Dean. And, like, Emily, this is one of my favorite. Like, this is my favorite transition.
So what's the plan?
I'm working on it.
You don't have a plan, do you?
I'm working on it.
I just love that. Like, how long has it been? It's obviously been hours.
And he's still not got a plan.
No, he's still coming up with it. Oh, dude. Yeah, he got himself into trouble this episode.
He definitely did.
Yeah.
And so he's then talking to Emily, asking, "Can you see the Scarecrow?" And she's like, "What Scarecrow?"
Oh yeah.
No, what? And she starts, like, kind of screaming, and not screaming, but, like, whimpering, I guess. It's kind of like, it's not like, oh my god, and then it's Sam.
Yeah. And, like, Sam rocks up so casually, like, hey, what's up? Like, like, he seems a bit concerned, but the way he, like, walks up, it's like, he's not a run. It's a stroll.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So he obviously Sam cuts them down from the tree. The Scarecrow's gone, so they start like running through, and they decide that they're not even going to bother to burn the tree now. They're like, "Now we'll come back in the morning. Like, let's just get out of here."
Yeah. I mean, that's like the best plan that they've had all this episode.
I know. Best idea. Unfortunately, the townspeople have then surrounded them. They're you know, trying to convince them again that like they're supposed to be doing this for the greater good, etc. But the Scarecrow clearly has other ideas and stabs Emily's uncle and then sort of takes her auntie off. So it's interesting that they seem to be a choice then for the sacrifice. So maybe they knew, right, that they could sacrifice themselves for this.
But they had to. I mean, I guess the god doesn't care who it is. It just has to be a man and a woman. And it was the first man and woman he came across. Like, it is very interesting that, like, you know, the aunt in particular was so willing to sacrifice her family, but not herself. I mean, maybe they didn't know it could be like, because it was clearly every single time a young couple.
Yeah.
So I guess with that like fertility like idea, you know, you probably want to have a younger person. Yeah. Rather than an older person. I mean, I don't know how it works, but I feel like that's kind of along the same lines. So, but I guess it didn't matter. I don't know. It's just interesting.
It felt almost like justice
definitely
had been served, which I know is that kind of terrible to say because those people were like got killed, but yeah, they were willing to sacrifice their niece and this guy they just met. So I mean, and how many other people had they sent off to the orchard over the years?
I mean, by the sounds of it, it has to be every year. So
yeah, a long time since they came with the like settled there. So that's a long old time. Yep. So Sam, Dean and Emily just run off. All the other townspeople are like shocked by this, or I guess it's done now, so they're not bothered anymore, and they let them go. So the next morning, they go and find the creepy tree, and they can find which one it is because it's got something carved into it. And I tried to look and see what was carved in it, and I just couldn't. I don't know if it was the light coming through my window or what, but I just couldn't tell.
I mean, it looks like kind of Norse runes. It's not. Okay. It's not any kind of real like there was no symbol to like correlate from that book that he was looking at to this tree. I think it's more just like signaling that it's there. It definitely wasn't the tulpa sign.
No, definitely not. No.
So they just burn this tree and like sort of just walk off, and that was it.
Yeah, I feel like it's quite cathartic for Emily because like she does it, so she's kind of making the choice to destroy the town.
Yeah. She holds that branch really close to her head. I was really afraid like her hair was going to catch on fire or something. Because I was like, this is a big flame and it's like right next to your face. I mean, it could be camera work as well. It might be a little bit further away, but like it seemed pretty close.
Yeah, so they go back to the bus station, but this time they're dropping off Emily. And like, I think Dean had a small connection with her because like, Sam says, "Oh, do you think she's going to be all right?" And Dean's like, "Yeah, I hope so." And they do like a little wave, which I guess, you know, you get tied to a tree next to someone for however long it was. I'm guessing 5 or 6 hours. You probably become kind of friends.
And plus you're in a basement with them for also a long period of time too. Yeah, like you spend a whole day with somebody. You're going to have a few conversations.
Exactly. So yeah, we see her get on the bus and she's all good. And they say that they're not going to go back and sort of revenge on, like, go crazy on the town because now the tree's burnt down, like, the punishment of the town failing is going to be enough, they think, for them. Yeah. They're going to get their comeuppance. Yeah.
And then they have another small little conversation and basically Sam has now accepted that, like, that there's no need to go rush to find John, basically accepting the situation.
Yeah.
That, you know, he has to, they're going to work cases.
Yeah, I mean, they both concede points here because Dean says, like, oh, you know, can I drop you off somewhere? And then Sam says, like, nah, you're stuck with me. And, like, it's such a sweet moment. I think the little bit that he says, like, you and me, we're all that's left. And I was like, oh, like, that's really sweet. And then, like, Dean has to, like, ruin the moment by making, like, a joke.
You and me. We're all that's left. So, if we're gonna see this through, we're gonna do it together.
Hold me, Sam. That was beautiful. Come on.
You should be kissing my ass. You were dead meat, dude.
Yeah, right. I had a plan. I'd have gotten out.
Dean says, like, with a really straight face, like, hold me, Sam, that was beautiful.
I forgot about that, yeah.
But he says it such a straight face, and Sam's like, come on, like, man, just like, don't make a joke out of it and try and be nice. And then
it's like got his hand on his shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah. And then obviously, like, Sam teases him for the fact that he had to come save him, which was fully justified, and I feel he should have, like, definitely played that up more. The amount that, like, Dean, like, constantly on at him. Sam better be milking that one for at least the next few days. Like, remember that time I saved you?
From getting killed by a Norse god.
Yeah, exactly. So they do it. They drive off. They get in the car and drive off. So, last scene of the episode. Normally would be them driving off, but again, just like the last one, like last week, there's a little additional scene to this episode. Yeah,
Meg is in another van with another creep. It's definitely driving home the panel van, like, don't get in one kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And like they're having like a conversation, and she says, "Oh, you can pull over the car," and he's like, he does this weird hand movement. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then she said, "Well, I just need to make a phone call."
I've got to make a call.
I gotta sell you can use it.
It's not that kind of call.
Slits his throat open.
Yep.
She has this goblet with all these like gargoyles on it.
Yeah.
And like the blood is like pouring into the cup. This is the first time we see this. We see this a lot happen.
Yeah.
For a very long time. And she like is chanting something and turning her finger in it, like stirring up the blood.
Yeah.
And we only hear one side of the conversation. And basically she's saying, well, I could have taken them, like, why can't I just do it? And basically she's been giving orders. So it's kind of interesting that, like, you know, the whole order giving thing is actually on both sides, because she also seems a bit annoyed at it too.
Yeah. And I mean, she's also getting orders from her father, because she says that. Yes, father at the end. So
there is more of a connection there than originally thought.
Yeah.
Like between not connection, but parallels rather.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we don't know what, if you're watching this episode for the first time, we don't know what Meg is yet. There's been no signs as to, you know, is she human? Is she a witch? Is she something else? I mean, obviously we know, but yeah, in this episode, it's not given any indication as to what she is, or other than this chalice of blood. I haven't talked about the music for a couple of episodes, but this one was a really good choice for this scene. It was Bad Company by Bad Company. So it's like, oh yeah, it's like thematically great. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
On Netflix, it's just I listened to it. It's Push by Autumn Descent, and it's just an instrumental. So it's just such a shame. Again, reiterating, if you can get hold of the original cut of these with the original music, it's worth it, because sometimes the music is so thematically on it, especially in these early seasons. It's worth listening to.
Definitely, I'm gonna have to do that.
Yeah,
because I'm tired of missing out.
That's the only one of note in this. It was such a good song choice. I was like, yes. Awesome.
Yeah, so that was this week's episode. It was definitely a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be.
Definitely. Like, I was really surprised. I thought, what is happening? Like, I was just like, oh yeah, this is just going to be a Monster of the Week episode. And then there's like loads of stuff happening on the sidelines. So
yeah,
it's exciting. Yeah. Like, it means that like every episode we watch now, I'm like, what's going to happen? What are they going to say?
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was, and this episode in particular was definitely difficult with having knowledge of who the characters are, because it definitely takes away from the reveal later on.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that last scene was, I'm sure when I watched it, very, very shocking. Yeah. But because now I know who she is and I know that's how they communicate, like, it was just like, eh.
Yeah, it does take the surprise out of it a little bit, unfortunately, but it's also interesting to look at their interactions without, like, now knowing who they are. So I think you can have fun either way.
yeah, that's true. That's very true. So next week's episode is Faith.
It's not. I thought this was a little bit later on. Oh my god, this is one of my favourite episodes. I'm so excited.
So it's gonna be a good one. Definitely. I also really enjoy this episode, and we learn a lot more about the supernatural world as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited.
So yeah, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so. Just, yeah, looking forward to next week now. I really enjoyed this episode.
All right, well, it appears that we are still stuck in this purgatory, in the supernatural purgatory. I know we passed that tree last week. I'm pretty sure we passed this other tree too. We're just going to have to keep circling. So hopefully you'll come back next week and we'll have some more answers.
Thanks.
Bye.